sound effects.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, yes, and it's flat. It doesn't work. And that movie was it was a good concept, but just horribly done. Like Shatner tried to go the same route as Nimoy did in directing the movie prior, but yet blend in the serious stuff, and it just didn't work. The movie after that, the last one they ever did, was excellent.
That was 6, wasn't it?
I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, it had to be the 6th one.
It was the 6th and last. It was
because the 4th one was the one with the whales. The 3rd one was Search for Spock. The 2nd one was with Wrath of Khan.
Wikipedia, because maybe you're a Trekkie too.
No, I'm not. I don't know. I've seen way too many films in my day.
I will tell you, and I could talk Star Wars and Star Trek all day long. Star Trek 2, 3, and 4 are hard to top. They were just great. They were operatic, dramatic, great script writing, I think, and great acting, and just great overall stories. They were terrific. 2, 3, and 4. And I think 6 was good, too. The only floppers were 1 and 5.
Yeah, I'd agree. And 1, you had at least the novelty of everybody coming back to the big screen. And think about it. When you went to the movie to see that for the first time, everybody, you could hear, everybody taking this deep breath when you saw the Enterprise for the first time. Jaws hit the floor when you saw that on the big screen. The special effects were brand new.
For Star Trek?
Yeah, for Star Trek.
Yeah.
So to recreate that world for the first time on a big screen was a huge deal for Star Trek fans. It didn't matter that the film was 3 hours long, and it was pretty slow and boring and not a whole lot of action, but people were just glad to see the old crew back aboard the Enterprise.
Yeah, and it was neat. It was neat to see the way they modernized the original series, because originally that was going to be another series, and then they made it a motion picture.
Yeah, I didn't know that. You know what, Nick? I was just sitting here thinking we should take out the last 20 minutes and make it its own separate podcast and upload it to iTunes.
On Star Trek.
We'll produce an open and a close.
We can do that.
We can do that. That's the beauty of podcasting. So I'm going to do something here real quick, Nick. Here you go.
Here we go again.
Okay, Nick, this is our top 5. Now, this is a warm-up for Larry, who is going to...
Can we get another top 5 music?
I'm working on it, my friend.
Something a little more modern. I mean, I love our retro intros and lead-ins and lead-outs and everything in the exit, but that one is just reminds me of the Golden Girls. It reminds... Oh, my God. No, it reminds me... This is like the scene with Chef Jeff Hunsinger of the Beaumont Inn, you and I frolicking through the woods before picking popinkies, before we climb to the top of the castle and shoot archery bow and arrows at our medieval foes. That's what that was.
You guys, I never thought I'd hear the word archery brought up during a chef segment. You guys were great, though.
For those that didn't hear it, go back and listen to the second half, at least, of last week's episode, because there was some funny shit in there.
Yeah, it was funny. It was a good show.
Between you comparing Tom Jones, Elvis to Tom Jones.
Now, that's a guest I want to have on the show, Tom Jones.
Jones.
And he's performing. He's still touring, man, in the UK. He's big business, so he might be a tough one to get. Anyway, this is our warm-up before Larry. This is last night, Breaking Bad, right? 10 million people watched the finale. Record-setting, right? It was a record-setting finale. These are the top 5 all-time series finales, not by ratings, but your and my personal top 5 series finales.
Yeah, okay, I'm ready. And you want me to start?
Yeah.
I will start with Cheers.
That's a good call. That's one of the honorable mentions.
Diane Chambers comes back. I mean, how can you... all those years... First of all, the original cast of Cheers, it was great. The Diane and Sam romance. And then suddenly Diane was gone. I mean, she was exited, obviously. They they gave her an ending, but she leaves, and Kirstie Alley comes in, and there was always that talk. Which was better, Kirstie Alley, Rebecca Howe, or Diane Chambers? And this kind of tied the two together and ended the series in a very good way. And I can remember afterwards watching, I think it was Carson at the time, may have been Leno by that time. What was that, 93?
I think you're right.
It might have been Leno's first season, I think it was, and which makes us very old, Ty. But anyway, they had the guy who wrote the song actually played and sang the song outside. It was on location at Bull and Fitch or whatever it's called in Boston. Cheers, the location, and it was just really cool. So the whole way they did it, the way they wrapped it up, the episode itself, the after party that was aired on Leno, I think, was just fantastic. So yeah, Cheers is my number 5.
And that show, if it weren't for that show, would we even know who Shelley Long is?
Well, I would imagine no, because her roles came after that show. I mean, she was in what was it called with Tom Hanks? It was about the
Money Pit. The Money Pit. That's
a great movie. It's a classic movie. You know, we might be able to get Diane Chambers. We might be able to get Shelley Long. That'd be fun.
She'd be a great guest. I'd love to hear about just being on the set of Cheers with, say, a young Woody Harrelson. I mean, he's an interesting guy to begin with. Could you imagine what he was like in his early 20s?
Oh, man, yeah. And I mean, when you think about Cheers, it's one of the few shows that was able to transition characters as well as they did. I mean, Coach was iconic, and then he died suddenly.
Yeah.
And they went to Woody Harrelson. And how Woody Harrelson fit in perfectly. They brought in Frasier's girlfriend. What was her name?
Yeah.
It was annoying.
Yeah, very annoying.
Brought her in, and I think she was even on Frasier for a while. So, they did a good job of transitioning characters. Nick, I think his name was, Carla's boyfriend. They brought in characters.
Right.
Yeah, they let characters go, and they did it well. I mean, that show really could have went under with Diane Chambers leaving. I vividly remember the TV guide with Sam and Diane on the cover, and the season ended, and we didn't know whether they were going to go through with the wedding or not. And it was the talk throughout the whole summer going into the fall lineup. So yeah, Cheers was a great, great, great show, and that's number 5 on my list.
Number 5 for me, and I didn't think the season was that strong, but number 5 for me on the list, just because of just the viewership and how people were into it, was The Sopranos. And the end scene where the family shows up at the cafe and they play, your favorite group on the jukebox, Journey. With Don't Stop.
But I do like that song. It reminds me of The Sopranos now every time I hear it.
It's like believe it or not, Nick, that song I think is the number 1 song in the history of iTunes as far as downloads.
I believe it.
Isn't that nuts? Who would think? Journey.
Yeah, but you could believe it because after that show, everybody went and downloaded it.
Everyone, and then all the sports teams used it at their arenas and ballparks as their theme song. So Sopranos for me, number 5, although I didn't think the season was that strong. I liked the end episode where they all gather. There was a little mystery involved there, too, because people are looking at them. Remember that? They're sitting at the table, and you're wondering,
is there going to shoot the waiter?
Yeah, exactly. Is there going to be a hit in the cafe, and it doesn't happen? And
yeah.
I thought it was a really satisfying ending to an amazing run for a cable show on home box office. Gosh, I'm dating myself. Did I just say home box office? Who the hell calls it home box office
It could
anymore?
be worse. You could have said HBO. You ever hear people say that?
Yes.
HBO. It's not H, damn it. It's H.
I just said home box office.
You did. Yeah. I remember when they had the logo come across the screen and you heard home box office.
Yes. And do you remember, Nick, people forget this, these were not 24-hour networks.
No.
They came on like at prime time and had like a set schedule. You only had one. You didn't have 10 HBOs or 8 Stars and 5 Encores. You had one channel. You had one Showtime. You had one HBO. They had a nighttime schedule.
There was no Showtime.
Yeah, I had Showtime in 1977. And
wow.
Yeah, my parents had to watch every movie before I could.
Well, and that's where I was going is it was a very big deal in my household, and I know in many of my classmates in grade school or kindergarten, whenever we were, it was a big deal to get Cinemax, to get HBO first, and then Cinemax was kind of really on the borderline because you heard there were scandalous videos late night on Cinemax. And I remember when we got Cinemax, it was like, oh man, I got to find a way to sneak downstairs in the middle of the night to watch Cinemax, and I found a way.
And those movies were the worst.
The worst. Yeah, but you know what? They were those low-grade porn. At least they left something for you to think about because they were just like, for being a young kid.
Oh, yeah.
They were just awesome. You know what I mean? It was like as close as you could get to seeing the real thing.
And we talked to our friends at school the next day. Hey, did you see that? I saw a boob. It was awesome.
But it was a big deal to get HBO.
It was. It was.
And Max, and it was much discussed at the kitchen table. Yes, we did have dinner as a family at one point because no one does that anymore.
Without television.
Yeah, without television. It was in the other room. And it was a dinner table discussion whether to get HBO or not, and then Cinemax was a big deal. Big deal. Do
you remember a couple of these series I'll mention, Nick, on HBO? First was Dream On, the show Dream On. This might be dating myself. It was in the early 90s. It was about a bachelor, and he would think in old movie clips. It was great.
I'm sure I've probably seen it because early 90s is my era. So.
And the other one was a show called First and 10, which was about a football team. I think OJ was in it.
I do think I remember that.
Gene Simmons' wife, Shannon Tweed, who was the star of Skinamax back then. She was like in every Cinemax movie, wasn't she?
Yes,
Shannon Tweed. She was, yeah. So anyway, those were early shows on HBO. But we're getting off topic here. So what's your number 4?
My number 4 is kind of weird, and I hope you'll accept it on the list, but I just have so many great memories. It's just so touching, was Johnny Carson's last show.
Nice. There was not a dry eye in the house.
No, and including Johnny. And there shouldn't have been because it was and, you know, I still have it on VHS tape somewhere here, but it was just so fantastic. I'm not a Bette Midler fan at all. But when she sang to him, you know, and I think she sang the Sinatra song, which isn't really even a Sinatra song. But it was just so touching. And for a guy who, you know, our grandparents, our parents, and us, we lived with Johnny. So, yeah, I really, really think it belongs there.
Yeah, it does belong there. And I can't think of many shows, Nick, where you have the feeling that the show you're watching is part of your family. And I think the Late Show with Johnny Carson, you felt that way. You felt like you knew him. He came into your house 5 nights a week. Your parents went to bed watching him. Think about it. They shut off the light watching Johnny Carson.
And it was funny, but he was a great interview. And in a very weird and distorted and demented way, I feel similar feelings about Breaking Bad going away. As I did about Johnny Carson. And I only started watching the show a month ago.
You're comparing Walter White to Johnny Carson.
Hey, there's a little Walter White in all of us.
I would agree. There are shades of gray in all of us. And Lord knows that Johnny, I think, had his demons as well. I think they're doing a series on him or a movie.
They are doing I believe it's a movie, and actually I'm going to Google it now because I've been really wanting to Google it because I've been hearing about it. But yes, there is going to be either a movie or a series on it. Oh no, hang on a minute.
And Johnny really wasn't a jet setter in terms of going out in public.
Oh, he was very private.
Yeah, he was a homebody and did not like to be part of the crowd and be shot by the paparazzi. And he very much stayed at home. So
and did a good job of it.
Yeah. And I think that added to the mystery of who he was. And it is interesting that a guy that, you know, steered clear of the public seemed so engaged with the public every single night. He was so likable too, Nick.
He was there every night, and there was good writing, I think, too.
Yeah.
His skits were just terrific. But, yeah, it's going to be a movie. It's going to be a movie, and they're casting it now. Who's going to play Johnny Carson? It's going to be a movie.